solid season for that group.
All right, so we have actually quite a bit of practice left to talk about a couple of things. We have about 8 minutes left in our practice session right now, but it looks like they're going to advance it a little bit early, so they'll be advancing it in about 4 minutes here. So the timer will be a little off, but we'll keep track of that for you guys. But Chris, this is such a unique track. It's sort of a mini Indianapolis kind of in a way. It doesn't have exactly the short chutes, but it is sort of that strange oval shape.
Yeah, and this is a track that's really kind of filled that gap in the open wheel history here in North America. This was always considered the track that they would run after Indianapolis. So it kind of makes sense that it would be somewhat similar in layout with the same degree of banking as the big track, and obviously a lot of history here with those types of cars. This track is the place where Jimmy Clark won his first race in Indy cars. There's just so much history tied back to that Indianapolis relationship with Milwaukee that you can kind of tell even by looking at it that there's some ties there.
Yeah, something we don't get a lot of chance to talk about before the race usually starts is the setup. These setups tonight are extremely loose. As we take a look, we're on board with one of the Rescue Racing drivers, and it is just an extremely loose setup out there and a very hot track as well. Our weather report saying 122 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius on track. That is a toasty track for as loose as the setups are and as flat as the banking is.
Yeah, that's going to make things really tough for these drivers. I mean, we'll probably see maybe not incidences quite like the one that just flashed across your screen there, but this track's going to be really tricky to drive today. It's tricky with optimal conditions, but with the track being so hot, it's going to get slippery and slick and gross, and it's not going to be a lot of fun.
So last week we saw at the beginning of runs, those who drove off their tires early started to fall back early as well. Are we going to see that tonight as well?
I think that could be the case. This is a somewhat older track surface, and given the flat corners that we see here, there's going to be a lot of lateral load on those tires, and expect to see those becoming an issue as the race goes on.
So speaking of passing, because of the flat banking, it must be hard to try and pass around the outside, so having to get to the inside has got to be the right strategy around here. But can you do a late apex off and possibly pass somebody on the straight that way?
I definitely think that's probably going to be the hard way around, but with the level of talent we have in this field, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see somebody make that work.
Taking a look at our series champion, Bradley Hawley, as he runs around behind Jared Mogard, who won the race before last. And these two drivers have really, Jared Mogard has actually surprised me a little bit this last series. He's been very strong and challenging up at the front of the field. Hopefully we get to see him come in next season, because we've had a couple of drivers who have been able to challenge Bradley Hawley at the front, but they seem to usually drop off a little bit during the season break.
Yeah, Bradley Hawley's has just been consistently one of the strongest drivers in this series, and it seems like he has a few different challengers throughout the season, but they kind of come and go as the season wanes and waxes a little bit. So hopefully we can get a couple of these guys to tag on to the next season and really get a good solid run going.
It'll be interesting to see who will tackle this track very well. Bradley Hawley currently 4th in practice as he pulls over to the side of the road. But yeah, these drivers are all seeming to struggle a little bit with the traction out there. Currently our leader in practice is Thomas Sink, who is followed by Brendan Chatley by about 1/100th of a second. Then Rob Haynes is only another 100th back, and then Bradley Hawley only a 100th back of him. So it's very tight here in the practice session. I expect it to be just as close in qualifying.
Yeah, I definitely think we're in store for a pretty close race. The only issue you run into is when everybody is that close together with their times. Usually it makes it even harder to pass. So we'll see how that shakes out as far as everybody playing nice over 80 laps here later on.
All right, so we have advanced to the qualifying session now. So the drivers will start to populate their private qualifying sessions, and we'll see them get out onto track. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this race was the race details. So while these drivers are getting ready to go, let's go over that for a little bit here. This is going to be our final round of this season, and this is round 10 of 10 for the PRL trucks. They're going to be running 90 laps tonight, or 60 minutes, whichever comes first. They have a fixed setup, so they cannot adjust it however they would like. So they're going to have to drive what is given to them. They also do not have a spare truck, so that's going to make things a little bit difficult if they get any contact out here. They have a 24 incident limit that is a hard limit, so that means that if they go over that, they'll be immediately disqualified from the race, so that can make things very challenging as well. All right, we do have our first drivers out there on track right now. Looks like we're following around one of our rescue racing drivers right now. This is Baron Hilton as he's going around for his first laps. He was the first out of the pits, so he's going to be the first to set in a time.
And he just smoked the wall there a little bit down the back straightaway.
That's going to mean that this lap will unfortunately be invalidated most likely. Let's see whether or not he showed it on his screen as the case. So here we go and take a look at Thomas Sink. Thomas Sink has been very quick in the last couple of rounds.
Yeah, he's one of those drivers that's been very fast but has had absolutely no luck. Just seems like if there's a way for the race to fall out of his hands, it's just happened every way imaginable this season.
So Thomas Sink ended up being the first, Dominic Pagine ended up being the first driver to put in a time, but immediately times cascading in as well. Rob Haynes is going to be up to the top of the board, followed by Austin Hunter, who just jumps up there. Baron Hilton gets in 5th place, but Thomas Sink just crossed the line with a 30.316. He's good enough for 2nd place. Stacy Hunter coming in with a 30.528, so that's unfortunately only going to be good enough for 3rd, unfortunately, I say. 3rd's pretty good around here. Rob Haynes retains the top of the board, rather, with his 30.199, so these times being a little bit more spread out than they were in practice.
You got to wonder, too, if maybe some of the drivers are waiting till later in the session to put a lap in, maybe hoping maybe a cloud might float by and cool off the track a little bit or something like that, but seems like a lot of guys are waiting until later in the session right now to put a lap in.
Absolutely. Daniel Knight came across the line with his first warm-up lap. Jared Mogard is starting on his first-time lap as well, so that U car has been strong all season. Let's see whether or not he can get up there and challenge for the pole.
Yeah, there's a few guys out on track right now that could really be a threat to that top position. Looks like Colton Lane slots in a pretty solid lap there in 4th position.
Daniel Knight with a 30.264, or 30.214 rather, so that's good enough for 3rd position. These laps are not necessarily getting faster. Rob Haynes has the measure on the field. Thomas Sink was able to jump up to that 2nd position, only 2 100s back. Blaine Adams, though, unfortunately looks like he might have gotten a bad exit off the corner, so he's going to be very slow on that lap. But Bradley Hawley is out for his first laps, and we know how strong he is in qualifying. Let's see whether or not he can get a time in as well. Colton Lane's 2nd lap, unfortunately, slower, so quite a few drivers taking this opportunity to do a little bit of practice.
And still there's a lot of really fast drivers that have yet to record a time, so we could still see that top position fall even further.
Tristan Callahan jumps up to 2nd with a 30.210, only 2 100ths back of Rob Haynes, and Bradley Hawley crosses the line and goes to pole. 5 100ths ahead of Rob Haynes with a 30.136. So Bradley Hawley takes that position. Mark Kalin crosses the line with a 30.391. And his fastest, Adam Zemke, is unfortunately going to pit. Tristan Callahan coming around for his 2nd lap, slid off of turn 4, so that's actually not going to be faster. Lost about 2 100ths out of that. But Bradley Hawley coming around for his 2nd lap. Mike Richter jumps up to 2nd place while Bradley's coming down this front stretch here. And Bradley Hawley puts in a little bit of a slower lap, so the door is still a little bit ajar, but it looks like that's pretty much going to be everybody for our qualifying session. So that's going to take us to the grid. Bradley Hawley will take pole today in the first slot, with Mike Richter lining up alongside him in 2nd place. Then we have Rob Haynes, who's going to line up 3rd, with Tristan Callahan lining up in the 4th position. Thomas Sink's going to line up 5th alongside Daniel Knight, with Brendan Chatley starting off row 4 and Brett Adams alongside him. Jared Mogard and Charles Sumner will round out your starting 10.
Just outside of the top 10 is going to be Brandon Walter in the 11th position, with Colton Lane hanging on for 12th. Mark Kalin will be in lucky position number 13 with Blaine Adams alongside him. Then we'll see Stacy Hunter and Austin Hunter in that following row, with Dominic Beijing and Adam Zemke in 17th and 18th respectively. Nicholas Hunter and Baron Hilton are going to complete the top 20. And then just outside of your top 20 starters, you're going to see Matthew Aubrey, the last driver to record a time, then Paul Williams and JR Bash at the back of the grid.
And Chris, I completely undercut you. You worked the mile, so you've actually done some work here in an official capacity.
Yeah, I worked here for Speed 51 back during the first Howie Leddow Memorial Super Late Model race they had here back in, I believe, it was a million years ago, just about maybe 2012-ish. Travis Sauter was the big winner that day.
Yeah, so the drivers are getting a little bit of a coaching from our league admins as they make sure that this race is going to run clean. This track can have a tendency to get a little bit messy if the drivers aren't careful down into these corners.
Well, you carry so much speed down these straightaways, and then those corners are so tight, it's really not that hard to just drive through the truck in front of you, just because it's really hard to stop in these corners.
Well, we have our pace truck back with us today. What will probably soon be an officially labeled Chevy Silverado. But yeah, quite a few drivers are in interesting positions here. We have a different looking front grid than we would usually expect, with Mike Richter being up there in second and Rob Haynes in third. We've seen them both have speed throughout the season, but they usually don't start up front. So this will be interesting to see how they handle being up there with the likes of Bradley Holly, Tristan Callahan, and Thomas Sink, who have been strong all season.
Well, it makes sense as far as the schedule goes. This is kind of an oddball track versus everywhere else these guys go. So it wouldn't be too surprising to see a bit of an oddball grid.
So as we see the wonderful reflections of the trucks as they run down the backstretch, the pace truck is going to lead them into 3 and 4. This will be a very interesting start with how slick the track is. Still 118 degrees Fahrenheit, 48 degrees Celsius as they get ready to start. Bradley Holly will lead them to the line with Mike Richter on his outside. The pace truck will pull off, and Bradley Holly will be released to pace the field. Here comes the pace truck diving down to the inside, and Bradley Holly controls the field. He's going to wait into the restart zone and launches. A good start from Mike Richter on the outside, and Rob Haynes following through as well. Tristan Callahan trying to hang on the outside as well, but Mike Richter carrying decent speed through the corner is going to be able to slot down in front of Rob Haynes as they exit 1 and 2. Looks like everyone's clean and safe.
That start going a lot better than it would have for two drivers. Mike Richter was lucky to be able to slot in where he did. Rob Haynes right there in the third spot, though, was pretty forgiving there on that start.
A pretty wicked three-wide battle there with between 7th, 8th, and 9th. That was Jared Mogard, Brendan Chatley, and Charles Sumner. It's sorted out now with Jared Mogard taking the advantage and jumping into that 7th slot as they go single file now here around the Milwaukee Mile. These drivers already starting to struggle a little bit with the traction, but Mike Richter putting some good challenge up on Bradley Holly up at the front.
Yeah, Bradley Holly definitely not having any room to rest right now as we ride on board here with Mike Richter in that second spot. You can see just how close he is. And a very cool look down the straightaway here. You can see how wide this track is for such a flat track. You'd expect it to be kind of narrow, maybe similar to like a Martinsville. But it is definitely not that. There's a lot of room for these guys out on these straightaways.
One of the things I was told was to not be specific with the banking in the corners. It's a general number because the banking is not equal all the way around the corner. It tends to, fluctuate up and down. As we see Thomas Sink a little bit loose there off the corner. You saw it on screen being challenged possibly by Daniel Knight. But Mike Richter is starting to fall a little bit back from Rob Haynes now. From Bradley Holly, rather. And Rob Haynes starting to put on a challenge.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about the corners here. This was an old horse racing track back a million years ago. And as such, when racetracks were in that Wild West age, when everything was coming around to what we know as racing today, sometimes things are improvised, and maybe it's not exactly perfect, but it's what gives these tracks a whole lot of character.
Those of you eagle-eyed viewers may have seen the safer barriers on the outside, and you might be thinking to yourself, why do they need those? Well, that's because these drivers are actually getting up to pretty decent speeds. They get up to 150, 160 miles per hour by the time they go into the corner, and if you get a stuck throttle, it'll be 180 before you hit the outside wall, and you'll need that safer barrier to be able to walk away from these incidents.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. You think about the kind of racing that they have hosted at this track over the years. I mean, you have Indy cars racing here, and they're going around this mile-long track in like 20 seconds. So definitely going to want to have as much protection for those drivers as you can get.
So Bradley Hawley currently leads over Mike Richter by almost half a second. Rob Haynes falling in behind with Thomas Sink in behind him. Daniel Knight rounds out your top 5, and the whole field is single file at this point. Oh, look at this. Mike Richter dives it quite deep into the corner. This is going to allow Rob Haynes to slot into that second position, take away that inside line for Mike Richter. This is some of the first two-wide battling we've seen. Mike Richter's going to try and do the over-under, but he just can't get turned into the center of the corner. He has to hold on to it, but this might allow Thomas Sink to try and get a position, but he has to stay in line as well.
That's one of the frustrating aspects to this track, is when these corners get away from you and you're giving it all you can to try to turn down to the bottom of the track. It is not easy to do when this track is trying to push you as hard as it can to the outside.
Well, here, look at this. 2 different lines going into the corner. Thomas Sink actually opens the door for Daniel Knight. In behind him, Daniel Knight's going to slot into that inside. Thomas Sink trying to hang on out there. Daniel Knight's going to have to pull it off to the inside, and he's able to do so and gap Thomas Sink. So Thomas Sink, he's going to try to slot back in behind and try and do the same thing to Daniel Knight. Nothing doing here. A little bit of a bumper to say, hey, I'm right here. But Daniel Knight gets the job done, starts pulling on Mike Richter.
Yeah, you definitely do not want to leave the door open going into the turns here at Milwaukee, because if somebody can stick their nose in there, you're basically done for.
And I'm assuming, Chris, based upon the nature of this track, that this is a place where you can move people if you're careful about it.
Yeah, you definitely want to be careful, because like you mentioned, Adam, you're hauling the mail around this track, so you don't want to be too aggressive and, in the real world at least, get somebody hurt. But there is definitely room for the chrome horn here at Milwaukee.
Bradley Hawley's almost pulled a second now on Rob Haynes. That battle with Mike Richter was costly for both him and Richter. Richter is now in 3rd position. And then it is single file all the way down back to Jared Mogard, who is in the back of this train. He is caught up in that 7th position to the back of Tristan Callahan, who's been hanging on to the back of these guys as well. Mogard doing a good job to get a couple of positions at the beginning of this race.
Yeah, Jared Mogard, you got to think his style of racing is probably pretty well suited to this track. He's pretty aggressive and isn't afraid to make a move. And at a track like this, where passing is at such a premium, he is
Mike
the guy
Richter's
to make
around.
Oh, that's going to be a problem. When you have and he slides back up in front of the field. And Thomas Sink going around too.
Yeah, this is a very interesting incident because Mike Richter was being passed on the inside when this happened. He's going to be able to turn it around and get going. But this is a very interesting incident. We're going to take a look at this one again. Okay, so Thomas Sink sends up the inside a little bit here, and there's a little bit of contact between the two of them. Mike Richter spins around, and that ends up clipping Thomas Sink, it looks like, and that's what sent Thomas Sink into the inside wall.
Yeah, it looked like Richter just kind of slid up and... Ooh, there he is going around. And just catches him right in the back quarter.
All right, now, like you said, they're hauling the mail around this track. How much is aerodynamic and engine damage going to affect you around a track like this?
I mean, engine damage is going to be a huge anchor on your truck, because you got to be able to get down these straightaways into those corners. You might be able to corner a little bit better if you're down on power, but it's not going to be a fun day at all.
A very challenging pit entry that's pretty much a chicane as everyone comes down the pit lane. Bradley Hawley is able to hit his box cleanly, as is Rob Haynes and Tristan Callahan, who are 2nd and 3rd at this point. So these drivers all slotting into their pit lanes. Bradley Hawley going to take 4 tires, it appears. No, he did take 4 tires. So everyone's slotting into their positions now, and Bradley Hawley will lead them out.
Yeah, you're not joking when you say it's a challenging pit entry here. I mean, these drivers lucky to have made it as smooth as they did. Got to think if green flag pit stops become the rule, we might see some issues there.
Yeah, green flag pit stops could make this very interesting because it's going to be a very aggressive dive down from the exit of 4 into the pit lane, and missing the pit entry, either making contact with the pit entry or even worse, speeding on pit lane, could really negatively affect your race.
Yeah, this is one of those tracks where pit road is basically one of the bigger challenges you have to face during a longer distance race.
So, as they run, Bradley Hawley leads with Rob Haynes in second, Daniel Knight in third, Jared Bogart's going to line up fourth, and Brendan Chatley in fifth. If you're wondering where the two drivers involved in the wreck are, they are back in 20th and 21st, and Tristan Callahan actually came into the pits twice as well, so he's down in 22nd. They're double file being led by the pace truck as they enter 3 and 4.
So looks like Holly out in front here. We'll see how he takes off on this restart, Adam.
Yeah, we'll see whether he does the same thing as he did last time. He has Rob Haynes on his outside this time instead of Mike Richter, another rescue racing driver. But as the pace truck pulls into pit lane, Bradley Hawley is giving control of the field. He's going to wait. He actually does not wait quite as long. About a second earlier, he jumps, and that caught Rob Haynes way off guard. That's going to allow Daniel Knight to slot into the inside, and Rob Haynes is now stranded on the outside of the racetrack. Jared Mogart's going to try and follow Daniel Knight through to get into that third position. He's side by side with Rob Haynes as they exit 1 and 2.
And that's where starting on the outside can be such a detriment here at Milwaukee. When you don't have the advantage of being on the inside and you get caught out like that, that just allows that inside line to basically freight train you into the corner.
Multiple drivers stuck on the high side. We have Colton Lane, Charles Sumner also stuck out there. Charles Sumner got very loose as he exited the corner. Those are the drivers that you saw out there. We're going to go on board with Brendan Chatley as he's trying to get himself up there. But wow, these drivers are taking a very aggressive approach to this second restart.
Yeah, that is definitely a fact. These drivers are digging hard now after this first set of pit stops. Maybe putting those tires to use a little bit early, hoping for another caution here not too long in the future, maybe.
Yeah, a couple of drivers expecting that we're going to get more cautions a lot faster this time. As we see coming off the corner, lots of truck drivers very loose as they exit the corner there. But Bradley Hawley leads by half a second over Daniel Knight, who's leading a train of trucks that goes pretty much all the way towards the back of the field. There's a slight break at Adam Zemke in 11th place. But Daniel Knight, he has not given up on getting up to Bradley Hawley, but he's going to have to burn some tires to do it.
And that's kind of that's the name of the game here. You have basically two choices on a track like this. Do you push it early or do you save your stuff and hope to be there at the end?
I'm taking a look now at Daniel Knight as he's being chased down by Jared Mogard, who has Rob Haynes looking to his inside. So Rob Haynes looking to make some moves on Jared Mogard. That U truck under attack from the rescue racing machine. This is one of the more creative paint schemes we have, and we're riding on board with Rob as he goes around this track. This fantastic helmet cam provided by Dougie Beard here, giving us a real sense of what it's like to drive around this course and what the drivers are dealing with inside the cockpit.
Well, Jared Mogard always has just the friendliest messages on the tailgate of his truck.
He always does. He seems to... But Rob Haynes, he's closing in towards the back. He definitely wants to make this pass, Chris, but he can't seem to get a good enough exit off of the corner. Is better than Mogard to be able to get up there and challenge.
Yeah, just another factor of what makes this track so much fun and such a challenge. You might be faster than the truck in front of you, but if you don't have that position on him, you have your work cut out for you.
Rob Haynes with his best exit yet out of 4, but he just does not think he's quite there. So he's going to try a different method. He's going to take turns 1 a little bit higher so they can try and get to the apex of 2. They carry a little bit too much speed through it and ended up washing him out to the exit of the corner. So he loses some time to Jared Bogart, who's going to be able to pull away a little bit. Up at the front of the field, though, Daniel Knight has drawn in Bradley Holly a little bit. He's cut down the gap about in half, but Bradley, if I know him, he's most likely conserving his stuff at the moment.
Now, Adam, as we can see, the track has that fresher strip of newer asphalt towards the inside of the corners. Do you think it makes a difference on tire wear? Because we have seen some drivers that run a little bit higher up and maybe straddle that gap a little bit. Do you think it makes a difference on tire wear?
I think it would make a difference. Baron Hilton just went door to door with Brett Adams, and they made contact going through the corner, so this is going to be a little bit of trouble for them. We're going to take a look at this. So here it is coming. They're going to be coming through 1 and 2, I believe, but here we go. Baron Hilton with alongside Brett Adams here, and this is going to be, oh, look at this. Brett Adams just a little bit couldn't get the truck turned into the corner there.
And I think maybe it was expected that he was going to try to drive a little bit further down into the turn, because Baron Hilton didn't really run an outrageous line there on the outside. It just, I guess he was just expecting Brett Adams to turn in, and he didn't.
So while Barron tries to recover, we're going to jump back up to Mogard and Haynes, because Haynes has not given up on hounding Mogard.
Yeah, it definitely seems like Haynes has the faster truck right now, but you got to think, if he's racing that hard to try to get around Mogard, he might be using up his stuff here, and that may not be the smartest move here this early in the run.
A little bit of mental gamesmanship on the back of Mogard's machine there, as Rob Haynes, that might be one of the reasons why he wants to get his nose in under Jared Mogard, as that Rescue Racing machine battling, tied for that second spot right now in the points with the Whataback guys. So this is not an easy move there. So as we keep going, looks like we might have a little bit of a connection issue from Bradley Holly. If this persists, this could change the complexion of the race entirely. We'll keep our eyes on that as we keep going. Right now, your leader, because of that, is Daniel Knight, with Jared Mogard in second and Rob Haynes in third, as he's challenging Jared Mogard. And it looks like we're hearing official word from the series admins that Bradley Holly has unfortunately had a throughput, so he is going to be out of this race. This changes everything at the front now.
Well, this has definitely opened up this race. So now Daniel Knight leads over Jared Mogard, and we have a whole new game now, Adam.
And look at that. Jared Mogard took that as his signal to go. He has now left Rob Haynes in the dust and is now clawing his way forward to Daniel Knight in first. It looks like we have some decent battles all over the track right now. P11's pretty much a hornet's nest right now, with Blaine Adams, Thomas Sink, and Mark Kalin as they're battling almost side by side here. Thomas Sink has not been kind as he has been cutting back through the field. He's definitely trying his hardest to get back up there towards the front, and he is not letting anyone get in his way.
I gotta think about this point, Thomas Sink's gonna have nightmares about powder blue.
Well, he's surrounded by them right now. It's definitely going to be affecting your psyche, but he dives to the inside here of Blaine Adams. Blaine's going to give him the room to do so. Thomas Sink, let's see whether or not he can hold that inside line as he exits the corner. Yes, he can. Colton Lane fighting back a little bit. They almost make contact down the front stretch. But here comes Brett Adams to try and challenge as well. So, yeah, Thomas Sink is definitely being hounded by a Blue Brigade.
Yeah, maybe it's just me, but I'm all of a sudden getting irrationally angry about that shade of blue.
Pretty sure that's not just you. I'm sure Thomas Sink is thinking the same thing, but he finally is able to get clear and is going to start pulling away from these guys, Brett Adams and Blaine Adams, as they pull off of 3 and 4 there. But yeah, that was probably very stressful moments for Thomas Sink there, because trying to claw your way back through at a race like this can be very challenging.
Also great news for him, the next truck up in front of him, Colton Lane, a new paint scheme this week, and is also racing a powder blue truck.
So powder blue is the name of the game. I'm sure there is some sort of inside joke or some sort of historical thing that I'm missing with this. I'll keep my eyes out, but We'll keep it out there. Take a look at this. I laugh at Tony Danza. The Tony Danza truck has returned here. This is Colton Lane in the 60. He always makes a joke at the beginning of these races that he laughs at Tony Danza, and here he is repping the paint on the final race of the season. That's a great nod right there.
I just gotta wonder, does that mean he's the boss?
Well, we'll leave that to our viewers to figure out. But back there in the powder blue mess, Blaine Adams and Mark Kalin are starting to. Ooh, looks like Bradley Holly has returned, but he's a couple laps down now, and he's trying to get his laps back. As we take a look right now at Bradley Holly, he's now mired in this mess that Thomas Sink was mired in. This is Blaine Adams. He's trying to make his way by now. Then we have Mark Kalin and Mike Richter. Ooh, Mike makes a contact with the outside wall. He's able to retain that position. Bradley Holly thinks about going 3 wide, but decides better of it. But look at this. Mike Richter going way up the hill. Blaine Adams is going to have to cut to the inside to try and get back there.
Yeah, this is probably not the track you want to try a 3 wide move at, especially when you're probably as frustrated as Bradley Holly is after his connection issues, leaving him about 5 laps down at this point. So maybe better to be a little bit patient in that scenario.
But right behind him, Blaine Adams and Mark Kalin are not done battling with one another, and Mike Richter is not done trying to get himself forward in the field. This is all for the 13th spot, but you may think that this means nothing down here, but these drivers, remember, the team's championship is still up for grabs, and second place in the points championship is still up for grabs, so every position matters for all of these drivers, even in the back of the pack.
Yeah, there's still stuff to play for, even with the championship sewn up for the driver's side of things. As we see this, just so many powder blue trucks, Adam. This is literally starting to make me like spaz out.
Fortunately for us, Bradley Holly driving in a royal blue machine, but we should take a look at our leaders because Jared Mogard has closed up to the back of Daniel Knight right now. Rob Haynes has fallen up the back of these drivers, and Jared Mogard is once again starting to hound that 17.
Yeah, both drivers have showed tremendous speed throughout this run. But if you remember when Rob Haynes was glued right to the tailgate on the 00 at Jared Mogard, that very well could have been Jared going only as fast as he needed to for that portion of the run. Well, you had Daniel Knight who was trying to chase down Bradley Holly for a good portion of this tire run. So maybe Jared Mogard has some fresher tires that he's not abused as much as Daniel Knight has.
Yeah, chasing down Bradley Holly can be an exhausting thing for both the truck, the driver, and the tires. I should say all three, not both. But Jared Mogard now exiting 1 and 2. This is just such a difficult track to gain an advantage on.
Yeah, but Jared Mogard, just got such a great run. I thought maybe he'd be able to get the nose to the inside, but Daniel Knight's got the better drive off the corner.
So the track temperature is actually going down, which means these trucks will be tightening up. It is now 115 degrees Fahrenheit, or 46 degrees Celsius. That's down about 3 degrees since the start of the race and about another 3 from qualifying. So the air temp being at 79, and it's 3:10 p.m. virtual standard time. So this track should only be cooling more as we continue on in this race. We're almost halfway. As they cross the line, they'll be starting lap 39 of 80. We've had 1 caution so far. Daniel Knight currently leads over Jared Mogard, with Rob Haynes in 3rd, Brendan Shatley in 4th, Charles Sumner in 5th, and Bradley Holly unfortunately had a connection issue, so he is now 5 laps down. That's why you don't see him here at the front of the field. So as Jared continues to work here on Daniel, most of the battles throughout the race have been a little bit tampered down due to this long green flag run. And Chris, how long would you expect these trucks would be able to go on this green flag run?
I mean, we could see, depending on how things shake out, we could see these guys out there for a while. The issue then breaks down to how long do you want to stay out when your tires are aging, and people that do decide to pit a little bit early, come in and are able to scrub that much time off of you. So it's really going to be a balancing act on how far these guys can go and what their objectives are as far as hitting fuel and tire life.
For reference, the leader's fastest lap is a 30.262, whereas his last lap was a 31.252. So almost exactly a second slower than his fastest lap. So we could expect to see any driver who takes to the pits now would gain about a second a lap advantage over the drivers around them. But they're going to lose more than a lap in the pits, most likely.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge balancing act on which strategy you think will work out, and it's going to take a little bit of luck too. And we have a battle going on right now with Charles Sumner and Brendan Chatley for position there. Looks like that orange juice truck is hanging strong out there.
And that's Bradley Hawley trying to unlap himself, getting by Austin Hunter right in behind them, but Charles Sumner just making the pass on Brendan Chatley, and Brendan Chatley looks like he's hit the cliff because he's starting to lose a little bit of pace here. But here's Bradley Hawley diving down to the inside. Chatley's going to let him go there. And just as a note, Bradley Hawley has about 17 lap newer tires than the rest of this field. That's why you see him with such a big pace difference. That being said, he only is lapping about 0.2 of a second faster than our leaders.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I would think that the tires would be making a more significant difference as he tries to get back up through the field. But then again, he is also right in the thick of traffic, which isn't making things particularly easy.
So as Bradley clears those guys, Austin Hunter can get back to working on his teammate, Brendan Chatley. Austin Hunter, now we're starting to see these trucks definitely are tightening up as this run goes on. We're seeing a lot less of an ability to rotate through the center of the corner as you see him having to hold that wheel steady as the truck wants to just push out at the center of the corner. But Austin Hunter has found a rhythm that seems to be working for him and is gaining on his teammate. He's got to figure out some way to sneak on by, though, and this might be the opportunity. Brendan Chatley going a little bit offline here. This allows Austin Hunter to stick his nose in. He's going to carry the momentum off the corner. If he can late break him into 3 and 4, this might be a pass done.
Yeah, this is going to be just about textbook what you have to do to make a pass here at Milwaukee. You really got to get that good run down the straightaway, and then you got to be the braver one going into the corner.
And that is exactly what Austin Hunter did. Adam Zemke saw that and is now thinking to himself, okay, so rinse and repeat, and I will sneak my way back past Brendan Chatley as well.
Yeah, looks like Zemke is maybe getting psyched up to make that move himself. Oh, maybe a little bit of a bobble heading into the corner. So maybe not quite ready, but he is definitely getting close.
Chatley's truck looks really rough to drive right now, pushing out of the corner. Zemke definitely had an opportunity to dive to the inside there, but decided to back out of it. So as he falls back off, we're going to jump back up to our leaders because Jared Morgard is trying a very interesting strategy on trying to hound Daniel Knight. He is closing on the center of the corner and almost running into the back bumper of Daniel Knight in the center of the corners. You're going to see it here in 1 and 2. You see how much more speed he carries into the center of the corner, but Daniel Knight is able to get a better exit off.
Yeah, it's amazing that I guess this is the different approaches to this track. Daniel Knight gives up a little bit on corner entry, and Mogard actually taps the back bumper. But Daniel Knight has typically had a much better drive off the corner.
This will be interesting because Jared Mogard is as close as he has been. He's going to still take his own normal line. I think he might be content behind Daniel Knight, but now they're starting to run into some lap traffic. This is Matthew Aubrey and Stacy Hunter who are ahead of them. And this lap traffic, if they don't play nice, could really upset this battle.
Yeah, lap traffic could definitely be a huge headache here with the single groove turns that we have at Milwaukee. Having one of these lap trucks in your way would not only compromise your lap, but it also could allow the truck behind you to close in and maybe even have better momentum off the corner and use that to propel themselves to get around you into the next turn.
Aubrey has been lapping about half a second slower than our leaders, so that's the pace differential that Daniel Knight might run into if he gets tucked in behind one of these drivers into a turn. He's going to have to hope that they go high, otherwise Jared Mogard is poised to strike. And there he goes, up to the high side, so Daniel Knight able to slot in underneath. Jared Morgard will as well, but will this compromise Jared's exit? No. Matthew Aubrey is able to back off enough. Stacey Hunter's going to go down to the inside. I believe that was just a little bit of looseness off the corner. So Stacey's going to stay to the high side here and allow Daniel Knight through as Jared Morgard gets very close to the back of Daniel Knight one more time. Jared's going to be able to get a clean exit as well, so neither of them held up by either of those drivers. And now we've started to see some pit stops. Mike Richter and Colton Lane come into the pits. They were down in about 12th and 13th, and they have now been our first ones to bite on green flag pit stops.
You gotta wonder how this early strategy may work out, because they're going to be quite a bit quicker once they get back out onto the track. But is that going to be enough to maybe propel them up the running order once all the pit stops cycle through?
So Nicholas Hunter dives down to the pit lane as well in front of our leaders. Mark Kalin also taking a pit stop. So quite a few drivers in the mid to backpack taking these tires and fuel now. But the leaders have only lost 0.2 of a second since about 20 laps ago on pace. So they might not feel the need to come in. But we'll keep our eyes on those drivers who have just pitted and see whether or not they are able to make significant gains.
Mogard once again just gets so close to the tailgate on the 17, and he's actually hanging with them pretty good down the straightaway. Mogard is just biding his time and really waiting to pick his spot.
Yeah, do you think that Mogard is waiting for the caution or waiting for a pit stop, or do you think he's actually trying to make a move here?
You know, it's so hard to tell with Mogard. He's honestly a bit of a wild card out there as far as strategy goes. He's basically shoving the 17 through the corner there. You gotta wonder what really is going through his head on this one. I mean, he could just be trying to push him. Maybe he doesn't want to be in that vulnerable position up front in case a caution does come out during the pit cycle.
Brendan Chatley drops to the pits from 8th as we see our previous leader, Bradley Hawley, making his way up to the back of our leaders. Jared Mogard may actually take this opportunity to try and set up a pick possibly with Daniel Knight being forced to the high side. And we're going to jump on board with Bradley Hawley. Remember, he's on fresher tires than either of these two drivers, and Bradley Hawley has been doing 31.2s while the leaders have been doing 31.5, so he does have an advantage. Well, let's see how he manages to get by these two.
Yeah, and you know Hawley's probably got a chip on his shoulder after a connection issue sidelined him for a few laps, and he's looking to get as many laps back as he can to try to get back up that running order.
Austin Hunter hits the pits and misses his box a little bit, so he's unfortunately going to have a slower stop. But look at this. Now we have JR Bash involved in this as well. Where's JR going to go, and how is Bradley Hawley going to handle this as well? So JR goes to the high side. This allows... Ooh, Mogard actually might have a nose in here. He's going to cut across the pit lane entry, or the pit lane exit, rather, to try and get a better line there. Bradley Hawley still waiting, still just biding his time in behind these guys.
Yeah, Mogard was all the way down on the apron of the track there trying to... I'm not sure if he was trying to make the pass or just trying not to run into the 17 of Daniel Knight.
Jared Mogard definitely looking at the back of Daniel Knight's machine very, very aggressively right now. Now, out of our pit stop takers, Brendan Chatley is the first one on track. He is the lead pit stop taker on track, and he just pulled a 30.680 as his first flying lap. So our leaders are doing 31.561, so just over a second advantage. Bradley Hawley trying to signal to Jared Mogard that he possibly wants to get by. But take a look at this, and Baron Hilton has come into the pits from 7th place. So he's going to take a pit stop. Matthew Aubrey's into the pits as well.
Yeah, these guys are definitely waiting it out to make their pit stops up front.
So here comes Nicholas Hunter, who just passed Bradley Holly. And Nicholas Hunter is on fresh tires. Now, this could hold up Jared Mogard here on the entry of the corner. So Nicholas Hunter is actually going to back out of it. This allows Jared Mogard to go through the corner again. But because Nicholas Hunter was there, it's going to make him miss the apex, and that's going to slow him up significantly. So what are you thinking, Chris? Is now time to pit for Jared?
I mean, he's lost so much ground there, it probably wouldn't hurt to pit.
Can he pit? Because he's got Nicholas Hunter on his inside. He's going to have to go around one more time, and he does so. And now comes Bradley Holly. So because of this little moment with Nicholas Hunter, Jared Mogard has lost over a second to Daniel Knight.
Yeah, this situation did not play out the way Jared Mogard had hoped with these lap trucks coming up through the field. He's lost a lot of ground, and even if he had wanted to pit last time, he was totally blocked by a lap truck. So Mogard probably not in the most advantageous position right now.
We're going to take a look at the battle for P3. This is between three trucks: Rob Haynes, Charles Sumner, and Adam Zemke, as they're being caught up by Matthew Aubrey, who has already pitted. Here comes Charles Sumner to the inside of Rob Haynes, as Rob just couldn't seem to get the truck pointed off the corner. So Charles Sumner able to make that pass. Adam Zemke looking on. Here comes Brett Adams, who also has pitted. So it's interesting because all of these trucks that have pitted seem to be struggling to get by the trucks that have yet to pit. Adam Zemke's going to look to the bottom side of Rob Haynes now.
But really a quirk of this track, because if you can hold the power position being at the bottom around that white line through the corners, it's really difficult to pass here. So these guys that are maybe fighting them off with older tires, I mean, it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but the way that this track is kind of laid out, the way that the race is playing out, they're able to stay down low and defend their position.
Rob Haynes just getting completely freight trained by the drivers on new tires as they go by. They're now all caught up behind Adam Zemke, who gives them a little bit of a bottom lane there. Brett Adams trying to sneak his way by. He's going to take a look to the inside. Adam Zemke's going to shut the door and say, if you weren't through by then, I'm not letting you through now.
And I mean, right now, Adam, we're working lap 64 out of 80. These laps are winding down in a hurry. I mean, we only have 8 trucks that are on the lead lap right now with the way the pit cycles have played out, and you have 2 trucks that are out in front, and looks like Daniel Knight giving up some room. But wow, there's just so much going on and so much at play in this race.
Now the chaos going on behind 4th position right now is all lap down trucks that have taken their pit stops. And the battle between Brett Adams and Mark Kalin, the 2 powder blue machines right in behind Adam Zemke, is heating up. That's for 12th position overall. So, and now we're starting to get lap down trucks that have yet to pit up ahead of them. JR Bash is giving Charles Sumner a little bit of a headache right now. So Adam Zemke finally goes to the high side. That's Charles Sumner in the Tropicana machine, who's coming off the corner. And then the 2 powder blue machines are battling for position.
Yeah, Sumner has his hands full right now as the 23 gets underneath him.
Sumner just trying to hold on to that truck at this point. At what point do you come into the pits for tires? I mean, if the truck's being that unwieldy, wouldn't you want to just get new rubber?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that truck kind of looks like a cow on ice skates.
So Sumner now being challenged by Adam Zemke for the 3rd position. Adam Zemke has clawed his way back up after getting passed by all the powder blue challengers who have pitted so far. Our leaders, by the way, still have yet to pit. Jared Mogard is still behind Daniel Knight by 0.85 of a second. Daniel Knight currently leads. Here's Stacy Hunter to the inside of the corner. This could complicate things with Adam Zemke's drive through the corner, and it will. Stacy Hunter unfortunately breaking up this battle a little bit as Adam Zemke has to get out of it and try and hold on to the corner. And everyone still has yet, our leaders have yet to pit since the last caution where everybody came into the pits. So Zemke and Charles Sumner still battling there for that position, but they have about as much of a gap between them as Jared Mogard and Daniel Knight in the lead.
And you gotta wonder if they have enough fuel in the tank with a 10-second lead over 3rd spot. can Mogard and Knight make a run for it?
I mean, I wouldn't expect so, but we're on lap 68 going to lap 69, so this could really... It's definitely getting close. Maybe they're betting on another caution, or maybe they have all the fuel in the tank. We're about to find out as they cross the lap 69. Almost, we're at 11 to go this time by.
I mean, it is a 10-second gap between Knight in the lead and Sumner in third. That's a pretty significant gap on track. I have my doubts about the fuel.
JR Bash is the next to fall. So we're going to take a look at the battle between Thomas Sink and Rob Haynes. Looks like Thomas Sink just making that pass. Rob Haynes still struggling with that machine a little bit today. Now I want to give an update. We're going to jump on board here, and our fastest pit taker so far is Brendan Chatley. He's up to 9th position. He just passed Daniel Knight and Jared Mogard on track for position. And he is trying to get back up there and battle for the lead. Now, if Daniel Knight and Jared Mogard were to pit at this point, they would lose that position to Brendan Chatley. The pit lane time is 32 seconds, and Brendan Chatley is about 29 seconds behind our leader, Daniel Knight. So if they don't have the fuel, Chris, they're done for.
Well, I mean, at this point, they're pretty much committed to trying to make it last as long as they can. I mean, there's 9 laps to go, actually closing in on 8 laps to go. So they are pretty much married to this strategy, for better or worse.
We're taking a look at the battle between Charles Sumner and Adam Zemke. Zemke just got by Charles Sumner as Charles is still starting to fall back because of how bad that truck is handling. This is the damage Mike Richter going to his inside. Adam Zemke in that 42 machine has now regained 3rd position, but he is 10.5 seconds behind Jared Mogard for 2nd. So this will be as far as he goes unless those leaders have to pit. Here's another thing, Chris. If these guys were worried about fuel, wouldn't they be backing off a little bit more than this?
I mean, common sense would dictate that, but I mean, here we are, 7 to go, and they're both still racing pretty hard, it looks like.
For our first green flag run was only about 10 or 12 laps long, so if these guys can make it on fuel, that would be a rarity here at PRL. Not that people haven't made it on little bits of fuel before. Remember at Talladega we had it where I believe I'm not sure I forgot who the winner was, but they finished without fuel in the tank. They got pushed across the line. But that being said, usually the PRL series is very careful to make sure that they require at least 1 pit stop towards the middle of the race. But as we come around now, Daniel Knight's coming through 3 and 4 and is about to take the flag for 5 to go.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how this one plays out in these final handful of laps. If they can stretch the fuel out and what these closing laps have in store.
Well, one thing I can tell you is that Jared Mogard has not lifted whatsoever. He is still throwing it as hard as he possibly can into the corners. An update on Brendan Chatley. He is only made up about 1 second since we last checked in with him on our leaders, so he's definitely not going to make it up to these guys. And Adam Zemke is 8.5 seconds back of Jared Mogard, so he is making time up to Jared Mogard, but he's not going to be able to gain that time all the way up by the time we finish this race in 4 laps' time.
Yeah, you got to think with Daniel Knight, he's got to be just about the sentimental favorite to win one this season. He's been so fast all season long, and he's been one of those drivers that have just had really tough luck. So wouldn't be heartbroken to see him end up in victory lane for sure. But Jared Mogard right now looks like Adam Zemke. Is he starting to close that gap a little bit?
Yeah, Zemke was able to cut another second off of Jared Mogard at this point. So Zemke still clawing his way back, but we only have 3 to go, and at a second a lap, that's not going to get the job done. So Daniel Knight is doing an excellent job out front ever since Bradley Holly had his connection issues, and has just been able to hold that lead over a charging Jared Mogard, who looks like he's definitely blown out his front tires. That truck is just not rotating whatsoever anymore.
Yeah, Jared really pushed the issue earlier on. I mean, he literally at one point was pushing Daniel Knight through the corner. So he gave it all he had. Unfortunately, was not able to get the lead wrested away, and may have to settle for a runner-up finish today.
Now these trucks, Daniel Knight may look slow through the center of the corner, but he's still doing 100 miles an hour through the center of the corner. So that just puts you into an interesting aspect of how unique this track is. But Daniel Knight is going to cross the line. That's going to be him on the white flag lap. Daniel Knight has held this spot ever since Bradley Holly had his disconnect, and he has held it strongly with a charging Jared Mogard in behind him. Daniel Knight comes through 3 and 4 for the final time. All he has to do is get off the corner cleanly. Here comes Daniel Knight off of 4. He gets it squared away. He gets it done. Daniel Knight will be the winner of our season finale here in the PRL NASCAR Truck Series at the Milwaukee Mile, sponsored by Diecast Kings. What a fascinating race, Chris. It has been very, very interesting to watch. Daniel Knight proving to be the gladiator at the end of all of that, holding out on just a single stop, 67 laps on those tires. What a finish.
Yeah, that truck had to be absolutely terrible to drive there in those closing laps. But Daniel Knight hangs on, not only to have a strong finish, but also finds himself now heading to victory lane.
Well, that will send us to break, but don't go anywhere, because we will have interviews and results for you for the end of this race as we close out our season here on the PRL NASCAR Truck Series. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Precision Racing League NASCAR Truck Series, sponsored by Diecast Kings. And what a fantastic race we had today, with only one caution and a very long green flag run of 67 laps. And here we go with our winner. Daniel Knight takes it home today with the win, with Jared Mogard just unable to get to the back of him. Comes home in second, almost 5.5 seconds back. Adam Zemke, another 5.5 seconds back in third position. Then Charles Sumner hung on for fourth position, with Thomas Sink recovering from that early caution to get up to fifth position. Rob Haynes is going to come home in sixth, with Austin Hunter coming home in the seventh spot. Brandon Walters going to come home in eighth, with Brendan Chatley in ninth, and Dominic Bagine rounding out your top 10.
Well, 11th spot was our first truck one lap down. That's Brett Adams bringing home the 11th place finish, with Mark Kalin in 12th. 13th on the track was Colton Lane, followed by Mike Richter, who was involved in that opening caution. Then you have Blaine Adams and Barron Hilton Tristan Callahan, Matthew Aubrey, J.R. Bash, and Nicholas Hunter completing your top 20. And then just outside of that was a 21st, 4 laps down with Stacy Hunter, Bradley Holly having the connection issues, unfortunately coming home 22nd, and then Paul Williams, a DNS today.
Well, it was a great race. Unfortunately, not for Bradley Holly, our championship victor, but it was a really good race for Daniel Knight, who won it for us, and we're going to talk to him very shortly. Daniel, fantastic race today. I know that's not how you'd like to win, but ever since Bradley Holly DC'd, you really held your own against a charging Jared Mogard. How'd you do it?
I got one. That's all. I'm no longer a bridesmaid. I'm finally the bride. I was saving as much as I could at the beginning because I felt like this was going to be a long green flag run. So I was letting Holly get out there and try to save as much, and then he disconnected, and all of a sudden I had to use up everything I saved just to keep Jared off me. But it was close. I'm surprised I survived that long, honestly.
So towards the end of that race, how hard was it to keep those tires underneath you? It sure looked like everybody who was out there on only one stop was really struggling with tire wear by the end.
Yeah, it was tough. I think saving in the beginning definitely helped me. But then when Jared started catching up, I'm pretty sure I heard him shifting, and I wasn't shifting through the corners. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try that. And as soon as I did, I started pulling away from him again. So I just kept doing that. But yeah, it's real slow going through those corners on old tires.
Absolutely, Daniel. You finally got that win, and in commanding fashion, I might add. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Again, dude, all the riding shotgun guys, Charles, and the rest of the guys that put on the PRL league, all 4 or 5 series. They have a bunch now, but they do an awesome job. This is such a fun league to be a part of. So hats off to them for putting together some awesome racing.
Well, it's awesome to watch the league grow, and also awesome to watch you rep the series sponsor, Diecast Kings, and we look forward to seeing you next season. Thanks for joining us, and good win today.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
That was Daniel Knight, our first place finisher, and it looks like Chris Phoebe has caught up with Adam Zemke, who finished in third.
Well, Adam, great finish today, coming home in the final podium position. Looks like at certain points throughout this race, you may have had your hands full a little bit, but nonetheless, you looked like you were closing in there towards the end.
Yeah, I think I had a pretty good race. Just like Daniel was saying too, I think tire wear was a key in this race. And so early on in these runs, I think the track temp started out at like 122 degrees or something. So I think even if you were saving, everybody was going to have a hard time saving the right front. So I think early on, just kind of being patient paid off in the long run. It seemed like I was able to get off the corners a little bit faster than most of the people that were around me. It's real easy to push off the corners here, and the wall comes up quick. So it's a little bit better to wait kind of right towards the exit and then really get on it.
Now, you came from deep in the field, 18th up to 3rd. Did you have any, maybe a pass that stuck out in your brain a little bit more than some of the other ones you had to make today?
I had a real poor qualifying, so that's kind of why I was back that far, and I wish I had got up a little bit farther. I might have been able to challenge for a bit better finish. As far as passing goes, some of that's kind of a blur. I'll have to go back and watch the replay, but there's not – honestly, the pass on Charles there at the end of the race, because I think me and him were running about the same speeds kind of at the end, and then I think he made a bobble, and I knew it was my opportunity to get at his left rear there.
All right, Adam. Anyone you want to thank that has made this season possible for you?
I'd like to thank Diecast Kings for sponsoring us this season along with ButtKicker. I'd like to thank the PRL for putting on these events. This is one of the funner things that I've had the opportunity to do in my life. So I'm honored to be a part of this. Thank you guys for the good broadcast that you put on. I'd like to thank my family who's watching. I think that's it.
All right, Adam. Thanks for meeting with us, and hopefully we talk to you a few more times next season.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that was Adam Zemke, our 3rd place finisher today.
And I have the privilege of talking to Charles Sumner. Charles, let's talk about the race first and your position in it. Looks like you're running out of tires there towards the end. How hard was it to keep that car underneath you today?
That was something there at the end. Yeah, the right front was at 22%. It was a handful, but a lot of fun. I went into practice tonight trying to be nice and conservative, and I was like 7/10 off pace. So it was one of those nights. It's the finale. Let's have some fun. Send it in. My brake bias went all the way down to 55. So yeah, it was a handful. Didn't as much as I would love to battle Zemke there. A little bit harder at the end. Him and I go back a couple years. It was a little risky, so I didn't want to try that hard and end up wrecking both of us.
And speaking of the finale of the season, this season has been fantastic with the drivability of the cars and just of the trucks and the racing that we've seen on track. What are your thoughts heading as we exit the season?
Adam, I apologize. I don't know if it's Discord or whatnot, but whatever question you just asked, I did not hear, my man. It was chopping in and out.
I was just asking what your thoughts were on the season as we head out.
Oh, on the season as a whole, I'm very happy with our league and our group. We know we had some stinkers at Bristol and especially Martinsville. But to end the season strong, everybody shrugged it off their shoulders, go caution free at Charlotte. And then what I heard, a netcode assisted one caution race tonight. I mean, that was a great end to the season. So I'm really proud of the whole crew for putting on a great performance and really everybody getting excited for season 3.
Well, I'm glad that you're proud of them. We're proud of you guys as well. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go? Charles, is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Adam, again, I'm so sorry, man. I don't know if it's Discord. It went super robot-y, but I know you guys got another one. So to kind of wrap this up, I just want to give a shout out to you guys for sticking with us for so long, putting on great shows week in and week out. And a lot of it's possible for our sponsors, Diecast Kings and ButtKicker. Much love to those guys who will be around again for another set of old seasons. So really excited to keep this going and putting on great shows that they can be proud of.
All right. Thank you, Charles. That was Charles Sumner, our 4th place finisher and one of our series league admins. And that's going to wrap us up for tonight. We want to give a big thank you to Charles and the Precision Racing League for bringing us on for another season. And we want to give a big thank you one last time to this season's sponsors, Diecast Kings and the ButtKicker. They've both been great at sponsoring this season, and it's great to see their products once again sponsoring a fantastic drive like PRL. We also want to give a thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts that are listed here on your screen. And as always, we want to give a big shout out to June Lalonde, who provides our bumpin' music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to today's crew, Sean, Chris, and Dougie. If you want to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find us at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_green. If you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storeenvy.com. The link is in the description below. If you want to see more racing action, hit that big red subscribe button if it's down there, and that way you won't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Next season for the PRL trucks will start up on June 17th at 8:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You don't want to miss it. These trucks always put on a good race, and we look forward to seeing if anyone has the guts to bring it to Bradley Holly next season. We also have some upcoming races for other series listed on your screen, so check those out and mark them down in your calendar. We hope you've enjoyed joining us for this entire season as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you, and we hope to see you back on our channel soon. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.